Joining us now, House of Delegates member from Virginia Beach, Glenn Davis. Delegate Davis, great to have you.
Good morning, John. How are you doing out there?
Now, what time do you have to log in to your, what is it that you go on? You go on the computer, you have to log in to get into the session. How does this work now, Glenn Davis?
Yep. Well, we don't have a session today. I have an appropriations committee meeting today, so that's in the afternoon, John. I think there's a couple other committee meetings prior to, but yeah, everyone's going to their laptop and Zoom this morning for the committee meetings.
How is that working? I mean, are you able to get debate? Are you able to ask questions?
John,
I mean, how does this work?
Well, I mean, the state IT staff and broadcasting staff have done a great job piecemealing stuff together, but it's not. I mean,
Glenn, you there?
I got kicked out and couldn't get back in. Then I tried to ask a question this last week, and I took a screenshot. It wouldn't, the whole request to speak button didn't work when I tried to use it. John, Zoom's not meant for this. So, I look at the Senate, which is still meeting in person. They're very efficient in person. They're doing it safely. And what we're doing is, obviously not at the level that I think Jefferson had in mind.
Okay, so when you first went, where were you first gathered when they made this decision to go online? Where was the House gathered the first day?
We were over at the basketball arena over at VCU's campus.
Right. So was there plenty of room in order to do business and have masks on, and could it have been done in a safe manner?
Definitely. I mean, John, everyone talks about how great of a job the clerk's office did. There was 6 feet plus between all the desks. It went perfectly, and it could have been duplicated easily, but that was not the desire of the party in charge.
Why did they want to go to an online format when they could have met safely, like the Senate is doing in the Science Museum? I mean, I've got one of our guys from the Virginia Star goes over there every day when they're in session. He says it's perfectly fine. I mean, what was the driving motivation behind Eileen, Caucus of the Corn, and the others in leadership? Why did they want so desperately to get this on a video instead of in person?
John, I don't know, and everyone may have their own motivations for having this thing online. I mean, there were probably some that, there were a couple of delegates that didn't realize that you actually lived up there for 2 months when you got elected. I mean, they were wondering when they first got elected what days they had to come up for, right? So, I think some of them basically, I don't think they had the time during this to spend another, call it a month up there in Richmond. I think others have this overblown scenario of the COVID virus. I mean, so I think there's maybe a realm of things. Obviously, we don't have the same opportunity to make a perceptual statement by, we would be able to on the floor of the House by getting up and objecting and having, kind of a little bit more of a presence to make our dissension known on a lot of these bad bills. There could be a number of things involved, John.
It just seems odd to me the way they did it in the first day. You put the screenshot out of you trying to get on and you got kicked out. And then what about the Democrats taking per diem for this? Are they still doing that? Because per diem is supposed to be when you travel, not when you're sitting in your pajamas. Yeah,
John, I mean, our caucus, to a person, agreed that we were not going to take per diem. We've all sent a letter to that point. I think a couple of Democrats have said now they're not going to. The overwhelming majority is still doing it, from my understanding. They're trying to play this game of, well, we didn't really mean per diem, but we meant this. But you get paid to travel. I don't care what you want to call it. You get paid to travel, and we're not traveling. What we have, as a Republican caucus has said, is that it's always been tradition that when there are committee meetings that we have to attend to and do things with commission and committee meetings in the off session, that there is additional pay structure to us. Not per diem, but pay structure. Well, and we also get per diem when we travel. And that we are happy to take and have everyone take that additional amount, not the per diem because we're not traveling, but the additional amount for being in commissions or committee meetings, but that being on a the House floor is already something that we're compensated for, and that we should not be taking any type of travel allowance, whether they want to call it a per diem or what they want to call it today. We should not be taking any of that because obviously we're sitting on our couches or our kitchen tables.
Unbelievable why they did this. And I think, part of it is just like stoking the fear. Look, we can't meet because we're all going to die or something. Now we find out with COVID-19 that only 9,200 people in the United States have actually died from COVID-19 that didn't have underlying health conditions of something else. So people without that died from COVID-19 in and of itself is 9,200 out of 335 million Americans. That number is under what people die of the flu on an annual basis. I mean, it's kind of incredible all that's gone on with this, Glenn. And, the 187,000 people of souls that we've lost as a result of COVID, not to be taken lightly. I mean, this is a very serious sickness if you get it and you have those underlying conditions. But it seems when you look at the CDC study that we could have done a much better job at just focusing on protecting those that were more vulnerable than everybody.
Well, right? John, you're 100% right. And I'll tell you what else is dangerous. Depression's dangerous. Mental illness is dangerous. John, I mean, there's been an increased number of mental health challenges and mental illness cases. There's been an increased number of attempted suicides and unfortunately successful suicides. The domestic assault and stuff is up. Whenever you take a family, John, and you put an immediate and enormous stress on them, especially financial, John, things are going to blow up a little bit, especially if they were already bubbling to begin with. And there have been cases of that. So it's what I talked about when the COVID first hit. There are two curves. There's that COVID curve, but there's the other curve of everything else, the impacts that this shutdown has caused, whether it's shutting down small businesses and people losing their jobs, whether it's suicides, whether it's mental illnesses, cases of mental illness going up. And John, I'll tell you, I think we crossed over that intersection point between those two curves a long time ago. And yes, I think we could have handled this a lot better and not had the situations that we're going to be feeling for, I think, years to come with this shutdown. I mean, had the governor, a month ago, took Virginia Beach and shut us down more than any other place. I mean, our restaurants are closing early. The guests stopped serving alcohol early. We have more restrictions on us than other places in Virginia. He said, it'll probably go on for 2 to 3 weeks. When things get better, we'll let Virginia Beach come back up. John, we're 2% lower than the rest of the curve in Virginia, and he hasn't said a word. And we're going into the most important weekend for our locality and for our region in the year, and that's Labor Day weekend down here. We're a tourist city. What the heck is he doing?
Have you asked him about that?
We're trying.
Because he did say it would be 2 weeks, and you guys are down now, so there's really no reasons to have these restrictions on in the final weekend. I mean, Virginia Beach was screwed out of the first holiday weekend, Memorial Day weekend. They were screwed out of the July 4th weekend. Now you only got 1 weekend remaining. And you guys are 2%, like you said, under the trends in the state. Why is everything still shut down?
Right. I know. And John, I'd argue with you that we should have been shut down to begin with. I think there's, a famous economist once said, torture numbers long enough and they'll attest to anything you want. I mean, I'm with you that you get this disease, it's terrible if you have underlying conditions, and any death is one too many. But there are things we can do to be able to provide the same safety and protection and not have to basically, shut down the economy down here, which will have impacts for the years.
You're right. John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America. We're with House of Delegates member, Republican Virginia, Glenn Davis from Virginia Beach, also a likely candidate 2021 for lieutenant governor. Glenn, let's get to some of the proposals now that you're going to be dealing with. I want to start with the first one on a party line vote. Senate Democrats last week passed their proposal to eliminate the mandatory penalty for anyone who assaults a police officer. This bill is now going to the House. How do you stand on it?
Well, John, I'm voting against it. It's easy from my stance. Unfortunately, I think it's going to come flying out of the House. Usually the bad bills start in the House, and the Senate becomes the place of sanity. So anything that comes over to our side, obviously, is going to get out. Hell, the only thing that may happen is it may get worse. But no, you can't. God, we're having a tough time recruiting police officers right now. They're not getting support. They're losing basically the ability to protect themselves. It looks like everyone's not, a lot part of our public is turning against them. And this is just one thing. We were all raised to respect police officers. And the biggest thing, John, is I think there has to, what I was explained by a police officer is one of the biggest things they have to do is obviously guard their weapon. They're responsible for that firearm on their side and everything that happens with that firearm. If it is not a felony to assault an officer, if I can go up and punch an officer and start punching an officer in the chest, yeah, he probably won't get a bruise on him. He's got a vest on him, so I can go up there and start punching him in the chest. He can't do much coming back, but if I can get just enough where I can actually grab that fire, now he's in a very precarious situation. John, we need reforms in police. All of us agree with that, but we can't put our law enforcement officers at greater risk in the process.
I don't see where this makes any sense at all, especially with everything that's going on now. Okay, let's get to a couple other things. Virginia Democrats are allowing Delegate Lee Carter, avowed socialist, to put an amendment in to defund the police with a budget amendment that cuts the Virginia State Police budget by 25%. Just before you, Delegate Marcus Simon was on, Democrat Northern Virginia, and he said, look, in the way that the transparency now, any delegate can propose anything. It doesn't mean it has the backing of the leadership or it's going to pass or get out of committee. So, but Carter is doing this. He wants state police budget cut by 25% while punishing local deputies and the police by a further $40 million in cuts. This is from Delegate Carter. This is one of the Democrats doing this. How does this play out, Glenn Davis?
Well, John, purely political, it plays well for us. No one supports defunding the police. You've probably seen the recent CNN polls. I mean, in communities, underserved communities, they want more police, but they want police reform, but they want more. They realize that police are the ones that help provide safety for a community. So politically, it plays out well. Unfortunately, I'm more concerned about reality than, politically. And if this thing gets through, John, it's going to devastate law enforcement across the Commonwealth. And it's really going to hurt those first responders that put their lives on the line every day for us. And as far as Marcus Simon goes, I mean, he's right. Anyone could put a bill in. But, John, it's been crickets over there. Where has Marcus Simon been? If he doesn't support it, he's all over Twitter and Facebook. Where's his tweet? Where's his post? Where's, the rest of their caucus? If they don't agree with it, where's their post at saying that? So, I mean, he's right to the extent that they're allowed to put it in, but if they don't agree with it, where's their statement about that? Because they usually don't have a hard time coming out against Republican bills that they don't like, but when it's one of their own, do they really disagree with it, or is it they're going to let him fly the test balloon?
That's a good argument. Where is the social media blasting it from Delegate Simon or anybody else? Also, you've got House of Delegates member, another Democrat in Northern Virginia, one of your colleagues also, Kay Corey from Fairfax. She is proposing cutting millions from the school resource officer program, even though in a recent study by the University of Virginia, a majority of students had said that such officers make them feel safer. What do you think of that?
Well, I had a group of really, really smart students on the phone with me 2 weeks ago, John, about this one issue. And they said, they wanted them defunded. And they said, studies have only shown that they saved, one shooting. And is that one shooting not enough? And so the SROs are our front lines. And where the past has been, the problem in the past has been with SROs being used to enforce discipline in the classroom. And John, I agree with that. We took some leverage, I think it was bipartisan last year, to stop schools from using SROs to enforce discipline. That's not a legal thing unless it gets completely unruly and out of hand and something like that, right, John? So,
right.
So that was the issue. But we fixed that last year. But the Dems still want to go further and get rid of them completely. Do they not want schools to stop school shootings and deter school shootings, or do they not care about that anymore? And that's what blows me away, because half the time they complain about something, John, and then the other half, they want to get rid of what actually deters it. One thing we all know is these school shootings in the past, a lot of them have been copycat. It's been, I want to make a name for myself. I want my name on CNN, that sort of thing. And they all know that if they walk into a school and an officer's there and they don't get by that officer, their name doesn't end up in a paper. They don't become the successful, person as, that's in lights on TV as much as these other people before them. And so SROs provide that deterrent. And now they want to get rid of them? John, I'm just completely baffled.
Let me read you a text by Randy in Hanover to Glenn Davis. He says, "Hey, Glenn, this bill also hurts EMTs and firefighters. I'm a firefighter. I've been spit on, etc. I know firefighters that have been attacked. It's crazy." So, because it's not only an assaulting an officer, but it's assaulting an EMT, it's assaulting a firefighter, as well as now a misdemeanor. So, you're further at risk here, right?
Yeah, Johnny's right. First, thank you for what he does. Because those guys, just like, our police and our sheriffs, put their lives on the line every day when they go in there. And, but yes, it's all our first responders. We already understand that, when sometimes our first responders walk into a situation and it's a heightened emotional situation, that someone could be highly upset and, that maybe they punch on their chest or something like that. And it's not out of anger at that person. And those charges don't get filed, John. There is that latitude given by those officers, first responders and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office not to file in those cases. But where it's someone literally going up to an officer and premeditatedly, in many cases, attacking that officer, yes, we need to be able to punish that as a crime, and it should be where it is today. It should not be, something that's, menial. All we're going to do is get rid of a disincentive to attack our officers, and our officers, in many cases, carry firearms, and they need to make sure that there's, you come within a certain distance from that officer and start an attack. There needs to be a severe crime, because their biggest concern is, you getting close enough to, cause, a diversion or some type of interaction that you're able to immobilize their weapon.
Glenn, final question as you guys resume the summer session or special session, whatever you want to call it, in the House in Virginia. Is there any consideration to ending Ralph Northam's executive powers here? Do these go on in perpetuity?
Well, according to the Democrats, they do now. So, John, we had 3 bills, at least 3, we heard 3 of them in public safety the other day, from our colleagues on the right, that will put limitations on the governor, on the governor's executive orders, where we have to come back in and take action on whether or not they should still be in force or not. All 3 of them died. And, John, I made a statement. This isn't about a Democrat or Republican governor. And I know that if this would have been a Republican governor, they'd be yelling and screaming from the rafters, just like, we are now. And honestly, I don't care if it was a Republican or Democratic governor. The legislature is tasked with making laws. We all remember this from elementary school, John. And so our job is to make the laws. The governor's giving certain executive powers in times of emergency, which was put in place just so to be able to cover things he had to do until the legislature could get back in the session. We're back in the session. And he arguably could have called us back in prior. These executive orders were never meant to be a year's worth of executive orders, which is essentially what they're going to be by the time next June gets here. So no, they're not going to limit him. They don't have any bills to limit him, and they just killed all of our bills, which is completely absurd. It's hypocritical, and it's not good governance, and it's not what our forefathers, put together when they created these 3 branches of government.
Glenn Davis, we're out of time. I want to thank you for being with us. House of Delegates member, Republican, Virginia Beach. Glenn Davis, also a likely candidate 2021 Republican Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Hey, Glenn, thanks for being with us. Thanks for the insight.
Thank you, John.